So here we are coming up to the end of officially the first year of Brexit. And the question must be asked, as it always should be every year, how has UK trade fared since the withdrawal? Because we can always compare it to when we were in the EU to when we were out of the EU. We have 40 years worth of data of being in the EU, of, if you go back to like the early 90s, of just the single market and customs union. We've got the data to show how vital it was for the UK economy. From the slump we went in the 70s to what happened in the 80s, the revival of like the UK economy. Much of it, of course, was part of Margaret Thatcher's doing, but of course that doesn't tell the whole story of what was happening to the country itself. While it may have been good for some, it was not good for everyone in the country. And of course, many people will tell you their own stories of hardship throughout the Thatcher years. Like I say, in Barnsley, there are people full of the town who lived through that era who can tell you all about how hard it was for them during the Thatcher years. And we are now entering, again, this very interesting stage of where trade is once again going to become a central thing to our politics, because this is what the Brexiteers promised. But today, as you can see, we're going to go into the Farmers Weekly, because how has farm trade been faring? This is going to be, I think, huge in the next couple of elections, because farmers are not faring well since the Brexit withdrawal. It has just not gone as well as they were promised. And as we saw in North Shropshire, apparently, again, still haven't been able to confirm it, but apparently farming and farmers were apparently people who drove their vote over to being the Lib Dems, turning away from the Conservatives. And again, farmers are again a traditional voting base for the Conservatives. So that's one thing that we have to look at, definitely going into potential next general elections. Might the farmers completely turn away now from the Conservative Party? So let's dig into this then. This comes from Farmers Weekly. And of course, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way, as well as the people who support me with the YouTube memberships as well. So this comes from Farmers Weekly. It's quite an interesting article because this doesn't just cover one area of agricultural trade. It covers multiple areas. So again, this comes from Farmers Weekly with the title of How UK Trade Has Fared Since the Withdrawal from the EU. Trade has dropped, both in value and volume, in terms across most of the key agricultural commodities since the UK exited the EU on the 1st of January 2021. The most significant dip was observed back in January when the new regulations came into effect. Several key forces have also played a part in this reduction, including the increased regulation, the administrative costs, and of course, lorry driver shortages. And of course, individual sectors have also faced their own challenges, with the reduced availability of foreign labour affecting horticulture, vegetables, and abattoirs, among others. The pandemic has also affected international trade during the past year, as did the global logistics pressures and exchange rates. So, of course, since leaving the EU, the UK has looked for new markets around the world for trade deals. Australia was the first country to negotiate a free trade agreement in principle with the UK, setting a precedent for negotiating with others. And of course, before this, an economic partnership agreement with Japan was concluded. In October, New Zealand, another major agricultural exporter, agreed a trade deal in principle with the UK. And concerns have been raised over the impact of these assessments they will have on UK farms. Further trade deals are expected to be established in the coming months. In the meantime, trade and continuity agreements have been put in place with a number of countries, including Canada. And by the way, we haven't yet covered the UK-Australia deal, because again, I'm waiting for the experts to sort of weigh in. But of course, it is the Christmas season, so many of them are on holiday. So that might not be for a while yet. But needless to say, those experts that have weighed in and have come out early have basically said that the UK pretty much rolled over and agreed to everything Australia wanted. So these are, again, a chart here for UK red meat exports volumes to the EU. As you can see, that's 2020, that's 2021, again, 2020, 2021, 2020, 2021. Again, significant drops. Same for dairy. And of course, year-on-year trade with volumes for the EU going down. So, UK withdrawal from the EU impacts on business. The loss of markets to temporary business and temporary business closures, both from Brexit and the pandemic, have been a significant impact on farm businesses. We asked traders and producers how they've been affected during the last year. Lamb. Rados Card, the marketing director for a Shropshire-based exporter Euro Quality Lambs, interesting, is based in Shropshire, says that exports overall from the industry are down by 20%, which is in line with the reduction seen in exports by his family-owned business. France, of course, is the pardon me. France, of course, is the main market for Euro quality lamb. Although the exports do go to Germany and Belgium and Portugal, Mr. Khan says that the post-Brexit trading relationship has been costly for the business. We are estimating between ourselves and our customers in Europe that we have extra costs calculating between £500,000 to £550,000 just during a 12-month period, he said. These costs include export certification, export declarations, increased administrative costs, import declarations, declaration costs, border veterinary charges at Calais, the import customs broker charges. Again, it's all admin work, and we all said this would be unavoidable. You can't get rid of this, but the Brexiteers seem to think that, again, they can just wipe it away and that these charges won't exist. And of course, some exporters are reportedly even taking longer to reach the continent, with the time taken for the border checks varying from an hour to as much as 6, depending on the day. The lamb supply has also been an issue. The production of lamb has been slowed down a lot this year. Therefore, the supply available has also been down. This, linked with imports from New Zealand lamb being lower this year, means that supermarkets have been buying a bigger share of UK lamb, which resulted in there being less available for export. The lack of supply has also limited businesses which specialize in halal meat. This is also efforts to try and send lamb to new markets around the world, such as the Middle East. Cheese. Richard Clothier, the marketing director of the Somerset-based cheesemaker and exports Wink Farms, says that despite some logistical costs increasing for his business, there are still, at the moment, trading freely and tariff-free in Europe. Again, tariff-free? I don't think so. Our main concern, of course, is the fragility of the trade deal, which is something we've never had to worry about before. At the moment, we are quite aligned with European standards, but if we diverge from these standards, this might put pressure on the trade deal. There are also worries of imports from other sectors, such as fishing, of how that might lead to disruption. I thought this was meant to be about it. It was meant to be the cheese expert, and yet you're talking about fishing. British cheese exports into Europe have been down this year around 10 to 20%. At cheesemakers Quick's Farm, Managing Director Mary Quick has said the exports drop are about 40% of their business revenue. Again, these are huge numbers we're looking at here. So exports dropped from about 40% of her business revenue to 23% since Brexit, although the pandemic has also played a role in this decline. The financial year of April 2020 to March 21, overall, that sales were down by 25% for the cheesemaker. Previously, 40% of domestic sales for the business went to the food service sector and 20% to the supermarket deli counters. Both of those dried up during the early months of the pandemic. However, cheese that went into farm shops and independents, while online sales increased sevenfold. Exports to Europe are now just so clunky, so difficult and expensive, Miss Quick says. Again, vastly different to what the other guy was just saying. When we were developing some new markets, these have all pretty much stopped. In January of 2021, our business did not export any cheese to Europe, although sales have built up a little since. Given the relatively small volumes that we are selling, the paperwork requirements are just horrendous. That has been really difficult. The businesses that already have good export markets further afield, with the US being its larger customer base and Australia the second largest. However, volumes of exports to both countries fell as COVID restrictions took hold. Sales are now improving, although remain below pre-pandemic levels. Rising costs and staff shortages are now two key points to watch, and businesses are now working fine trying to find offer to competitive pay and, of course, a 5-day week in order to try and attract staff. Red meat. Exports to Europe are down across the board. The key decider for how species have fared in the past year, of course, in the impact of Brexit, came at a time for the sheep and lamb sectors when supply was lower. Whereas the pig sector has been caught where there are a lot of pigs available and an oversupply in Europe as well. Farmers Weekly spoke to several beef exporters who acknowledged that their business had been affected to some extent by the staffing and lorry shortages. However, they said this was due to a combination of factors, and they were unwilling to give figures for the specific impact of Brexit. Alan Ewan, the chief executive of the British Meat Producers Association, says that with its cost, bureaucracy, and now exporting, it had really become as a shock for businesses, especially in the meat trade. No one had really envisioned the bureaucracy and export health certification could be as bad as it really was, he says. We were telling you what would happen. Of course, as well as the cost for paying the export health certificate, it's an army of admin staff that you now need to actually do it. And this has been one of the biggest shocks. The export health certification has also made it harder for exporters to send mixed loads to lorries to the continent. This also complicates the process, and this has been seen as now too risky. All these factors have led to a decline in exports and an increased cost. Mr. Allen says that it's important to recognise that staffing issues are a result of the UK's immigration policy since Brexit, rather than the Brexit process itself. The labour costs have also gone up considerably, and the processing sector is about 15% short on staff, with some plants as much as 20% short. This is leading to some sites now cutting back on the number of production lines, according to the association. Cereals. The effect of Brexit has been much less severe on arable markets, although there are still some associated difficulties such as labour and lorry driver shortages. Jonathan Lane, of the AMD, of the Agriculture's head of grain trading, said that while wheat and barley had been pretty much unaffected by the UK's withdrawal, from the unprocessed cereals point of view, the fact that the tariff system and the phytosanitary certificates were left as they were meant that this has been largely business as usual. There hasn't been a huge amount of change from the UK grain production view, he says. The only area that might potentially see some different is now how the EU has removed a 25% duty on imported maize. This is now the UK, of course, is now outside of the EU, so that 25% duty, of course, is still in place currently. Trade bodies are lobbying to try and get that amended. Pulses. Andy Berry, the UK pulse manager at the trading autonomy group Frontier, says that such issues as logistics have meant a much bigger impact on the sector in the past year than Brexit. The biggest feature on the pulse trade right now is logistics. We don't have the tariffs going into Europe, not yet at least, and customers in Europe can still buy UK feed beans as we can still supply them, says Mr. Berry. Our businesses have not really been impacted because we are doing all the necessary paperwork that we've always had to do anyway. A lot of containers and the price has been increased between about 10 to 40% for containers, posing an issue to that sector, though. The quality of pulse products in the UK exports to the Middle East, East Africa, China, and the Far East are all shipped in containers. Mr. Berry says getting the container ships have been given a fixed price, and so then the supply on time when the shipping agent has been organised is just not happening. Oilseed. Owen Clegg, trading manager of United Oilseeds, says that aside from paperwork changes, the UK's exit from the EU has not resulted in any major issues for the UK oilseed market, such as rapeseed during the trading between the UK and the EU is currently tariff-free. Because the UK never adopted the euro, exporters have always had to manage the currency exchange rate when trading with the bloc. While the COVID pandemic has been a highly deleterious effect for the UK economy, it has had an effect on the oilseed market that has not been so severe. Although European-wide lockdowns did negatively affect the rapeseed demand for bioseed use and oil vegetable chemicals from the food processors and outlets, Mr. Clegg said. However, labour shortages in the haulage sector aren't affecting the oilseed sector. The UK haulage and logistics sector is facing huge challenges with over 55,000 job vacancies. The cost of transporting has also doubled since January, with fuel costs have also risen. And with farm inputs rising by an estimated 22% and inflation now at 4.2%, it is plain to see there is very considerable challenges ahead. Potatoes. The potato sector was affected by several complications, resulting in the movement of seed potatoes to and from the EU earlier this year. At the start of the year, the UK was initially given third country status by the EU, meaning exports of seed potatoes to the EU were banned. However, the UK allowed imports of seed potatoes from the EU for an initial 6-month period. On the 1st of January, the large-scale imports of the EU seed potatoes were banned and batches could only be come across on a case-by-case basis. The severe limitation has reduced the ability of some varieties. And of course, this protocol is in place and allows movement from ware potatoes between Britain and the EU. So as you can see, sector by sector, they're all facing their own individual problems. So it's never just one sector you've got to look at, and as a whole, sometimes you've got to look at what's going on in different sectors completely, because there are different challenges that these different things will face. And of course, as we always said, this will negatively affect our trade. Does it shock anyone? No, it really shouldn't. We saw this coming a mile away. Are things going to get better next year? Absolutely not. We've got the checks coming in place that are going to cause, again, huge disruptions. The impact of these trade deals are going to massively negatively affect UK farms. We need trade with Europe. And as much as the Brexiteers want to try and tilt away, and remember, you should always be incredibly worried by the fact that these Brexiteers do want to deregulate a lot of the industry. What were a lot of these people saying here? They were worried about deregulation. If the UK moves away from the EU standards, which again, a lot of Brexiteers want to do, although they will never exactly say what it is exactly they want to do, which is kind of odd. But that will cause problems down the line. And farming in the UK will be hurt even more. Farmers had it amazing in the EU. And I think a lot of them are now going to realize just how bad it is being outside the EU. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link where you can, buy me coffee. And thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way, as well as the people who have joined the YouTube memberships as well, down below as well. And of course, thank you everyone for watching. Like I say, hitting the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Every little helps, as they say at Tesco. And of course, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you all